Welcome to Biology of Marine Mammals. I'm Dr. Leslie Williams, and this is a supplement that covers more on how the countercurrent heat exchange mechanisms work to keep marine mammals warm. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through some drawings to basically take a look at how the countercurrent heat exchange mechanism is different than most mammalian body plans and why this technique works. So this is an anatomical adaptation that is going to basically deal with blood flow. And so what I want to do is diagram how blood normally flows. Blood normally flows, if you're looking at blood distribution to the skin, for example, blood is normally going to flow up through an artery. So we have an artery here, and then let's say that the skin is up here, and then it basically breaks into smaller vessels called capillaries. So we'll go ahead and make some capillaries there. And the proximity of blood to the skin is going to allow whatever is on the surface to cool it off. So if the surface is air, then it's not going to cool it off very much. But if the surface is water, for example, then you're going to get a huge cooling of that blood. So this is what most marine mammals experience when they are in the water. So that blood then drops by several degrees, and then normally it's going to be shunted back into the body here. We'll take a look at that. Away from the artery, and that's done through a vein. So over here we have a vein, and over here blood going up was from the artery. So this is the standard anatomical design that we experience. And of course, we as humans and mammals have this design in most of our appendages. In other words, the artery blood is kept separate from the venous blood that's coming back, even though it's considerably cooler. So if we say that the artery blood, let's say, is going to be 98 degrees Fahrenheit, then the venous blood, after being exposed to a supercooled area, such as an appendage, that would be a flipper or maybe a fluke or a fin, coming back this way might have actually cooled off, 3 or 4 degrees. So let's just say it cools off, let's say it cools off down to 92 degrees Fahrenheit, coming back to the body. Now the problem is the body is going to have to re-warm that blood up before it sends it back to the artery. So this means you're going to be expending quite a bit of energy trying to re-warm that blood up with probably metabolism, though maybe also skeletal muscle contraction. So you're expending more energy than you would need to simply because you're trying to generate more heat as you warm this blood up. The countercurrent heat exchange mechanism basically says instead of running the arteries and the veins separately, let's take that arterial blood, we'll run it up here, and then we'll take the venous blood and run it right back down along that artery, and that will end up transferring some heat over and end up with better heat conservation in the long run. So what I'm going to do is show you what that might look like. So what we're going to do is we're going to take arterial blood and we're going to come up again to the same area. So we'll say that this is going to be the surface of the animal in some poorly insulated area. And we'll go ahead and have our water dissipate out the heat. But now what we're going to do, even though yes, this area is going to be a little bit cooler than what we might normally see coming in, we're going to take that blood that's been running up here and we're going to basically come back and run it right along the side of the artery. In some cases it even wraps around the artery like so. So what that's going to allow you to do is going to be a transfer of heat between the two systems. So let's say blood is coming up from the body here at 98 degrees Fahrenheit, right there. Okay, it's going to come up. Now, the proximity of this venous blood that's coming down at, let's say, 92 degrees Fahrenheit, like we said before, the proximity to this vein that's coming back down is going to end up with a transfer of heat between these two. So what's going to happen is that the heat is going to jump from this artery to this vein, which will warm up this vein coming down while cooling off this artery going up. So in that transfer of heat, it looks like this. that artery coming up may end up dropping a few degrees. Let's say it's down to 95 degrees, but the vein coming down is going to warm up. Let's say it warms up to 95 degrees down here at the bottom as well. So let's look at the consequence of each of those. So the arterial blood that's coming up is indeed a little cooler, but in cooling it off a little bit, it doesn't really matter because you were just sending it up to the skin where it was going to be super cooled by the water anyway. So what if you end up cooling it a little bit? But on the flip side, we've done ourselves a favor by basically transferring that heat early to the venous blood, which is increasingly getting warmer, so that by the time it goes down to the body, it's actually a few degrees warmer than what it would have been if we had directed it away the other direction. This means the body has to spend less energy getting it back up to that 98 degrees Fahrenheit temperature. And this is the basic idea of a countercurrent heat exchange mechanism. So appendages, again, like flippers and like flukes and fins, tend to have this type of design in them with the sole purpose in mind of basically trying to warm up this venous blood that's coming back. So what else can you do with it in a countercurrent heat exchange design? Sometimes you don't actually take that cool blood and send it down here next to the artery, but you may actually take that venous blood that's super cooled and send it elsewhere purposely. Why on earth would you want to do that? Maybe because you're trying to cool off certain organs. So if you're going to try and cool off other organs, this is exactly how you do it. And this is actually kind of another adaptation of the countercurrent heat exchange mechanism, where you send blood to the surface of the skin for the sole purpose of cooling it off, and then you shunt it to a different organ that might get too warm. What organ might get too warm? In male cetaceans, the best answer is going to be testes. These are going to be the location where sperm is produced for reproduction, and mammalian testes, as a rule, have to be cooler than the core body temperature. Most terrestrial mammals keep their testes outside of their body in the scrotum, but because of drag issues, cetaceans don't do that. So what they do is they keep their testes inside, but then they take this super cooled blood and they send it off, and they basically take that venous blood that's nice and cool now at 92 degrees, and they'll wrap it around the testes like that to help keep them a little bit colder than the internal body temperature. And it's one of the only reasons why marine mammals can actually have internal testes, where almost all other mammals have external testes to cool off their external testes to help cool it off. And with that, we are done looking at the countercurrent heat exchange mechanism.